This is now day 2 of my neighbourhood being transported into prehistoric times, and I think despite yesterday's attack, I'm starting to look on the bright side of things. I don't live next to that highway anymore, my noisy neighbours all got eaten and killed, and hey, I don't even have to pay rent here. You know, I think I could get used to this place. What was that? That's right, this week I watched director David Robert Mitchell's 2026 sci-fi adventure film, The End of Oak Street, starring Ewan McGregor as Greg, Anne Hathaway as Denise, Maisie Stella as Audrey, and Christian Convery as Brian, all members of the Platt family, who must survive after their entire 1980s Michigan neighborhood is suddenly transported into prehistoric times. This film was the biggest surprise of the year for me. I can't believe I initially dismissed it as some low-budget Blumhouse-looking film that nobody would watch, and I was more than happy to have my mind changed. Within the first 10 minutes of this film, you couldn't be blamed for mistaking this for something directed by Spielberg or Zemeckis. And while this is a better film than Spielberg's Disclosure Day, I can't believe he didn't direct it, as David Robert Mitchell pulls off the style, visual language, and charm of those 80s Amblin films so well. You could have easily made this film 40 years ago, and it would have been equally as good, if not better. It's like if Jurassic Park happened in E.T., with some close encounters for good measure, helped by the visuals and the incredibly John Williams-style score by legendary composer Michael Giacchino. And the film works well enough as more than an homage, as it brings something new to the dinosaur genre. Promised by the seemingly endless Jurassic World sequels, the concept of dinosaurs actually wreaking havoc in a relatively modern domestic setting is pulled off so much better here that I think this, quite frankly, sets a new standard for dinosaur films. Of course, my very minor complaints have to do with some standard stuff for the genre, specifically regarding certain characters making stupid decisions, which I probably don't need to expand on since it's the same as every other dinosaur film where characters run off shouting, making lots of noise despite the situation, and somehow don't get eaten by a dino. That being said, I love how high the stakes are in this film. Initially you go in thinking it'll be a heartwarming E.T. type thing where everyone has a happy ending, but there's a scene that was genuinely one of the most morbid, shocking surprises in anything I've seen this year, that had me frozen in my seat for a good 5 minutes or so, which only intensified throughout the rest of the film as you realise anything could happen from here on out. The effects in this film were mostly pretty good generally. The dinosaurs looked alright, and I liked the different, more modern interpretation with the feathers and whatnot, and the choice to depict lesser celebrated dinosaurs like Allosaurus and Titanoboa was pretty cool, as it brought something somewhat new to the genre. However, while they mostly looked seamless, I couldn't help feeling some of the dinosaurs could have been improved by being practical effects, as the film ends up coming off as pretty CGI heavy despite its 80s styling. Most of the human performances in this are pretty great though. While Ewan McGregor's American accent always bothered me, I couldn't complain about his performance in this as a more sympathetic version of the typical 80s movie dad character. But the big emotional moments he has with co-star Anne Hathaway and the scenes with his kids sell the emotional aspect of the film for me and make me root for them. The pair of them work so well together as the divorcing husband and wife forced to adapt to their new environment whilst protecting their kids, especially Anne Hathaway as Denise, transforming from the suburban mum archetype into something more badass, akin to Ellen Ripley, whilst also being competent enough to not have me rolling my eyes at yet another character's stupidity. The family at the heart of the film is written well enough that you care, but doesn't bring the film to a grinding halt to focus on their family drama outside of one or two admittedly pretty important scenes. Overall, The End of Oak Street is a fantastic film worth going into knowing nothing more than the premise, as you will be surprised by how violent and macabre this Amblin-esque 80s style seemingly family film can get, especially if you can get over some of the CG and don't mind a little bit of family drama. The End of Oak Street ultimately gets 8 thumbs up out of 10 from me. That's a wrap, so thanks for watching.